Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm your host, Locke. Who you follow me on Twitter at Lock It Media. That's Lock It Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And today on this show, the Braves make a move. What we learned from Week 10 of college football, how bad a decision CBS made, and the low streaming numbers. And speaking of how bad a move CBS made, let's take a look at what ABC is doing compared to what CBS is doing by letting the SEC go. After not agreeing with the SEC to broadcast their games, who wanted to stay, by the way, that was their first option, to stay with CBS and letting them broadcast. CBS said, no, we're good. And ultimately, they decided to broadcast Big Ten games. Big Ten games. Third tier, basically. Second, third tier Big Ten games as a result. And you want to look at the money too. They didn't want to pay $55 million for the SEC game, but ended up paying $300 million for a second, third tier Big Ten game. Does it make sense to me? Absolutely not. I don't get it. So I did a little checking, a little deep dive, and I was wondering about the numbers. So it was a 7-1 ABC head-to-head had better ratings than CBS this year for college football games so far, with the numbers being out. Overall, 7-1. And that's not including the head-to-head Big Ten versus SEC. That's the whole season, a 7-1. ABC has better ratings. Then, when you look into it a little bit more, so SEC versus Big Ten. SEC is 4-1, or slash SEC ABC has a 4-1 edge over the Big Ten in CBS. Interesting enough, too, 3 times ABC's 3:30 games and 7:30 games outrated CBS. And another number as a whole, the 3:30 window ratings, shockingly to no one, are down 28%, with an average of 3.65 million viewers, compared to ABC's 3:30 slot has 4.94 million views. It's not a surprise. I mean, year in and year out, it was big matchups that were rating huge for CBS every week during college football, especially when it was the SEC 3:30 game of the week. Now, you get second tier-ish games. I mean, they were thinking the USC Penn State game would get big ratings. No, that didn't do it at all. Ohio State Penn State, that's going to be on Fox on Saturday. They don't CBS get that game. I mean, they're excited about an Illinois Oregon matchup. Yeah, you get Oregon and a improving, better Illinois team. They might be ranked, but It's going to be bad. It's not going to be a good game. I don't see it. But that is CBS's decision, and it's looking really bad. I mean, think about it, a few weeks ago, your doubleheader could have been Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. Wow. Wow, wow. Those numbers were, I mentioned them in my episode last week. Eye-popping numbers. And I don't get it. I really don't get what CBS was thinking, where their head was at with that. I don't understand. And now they've already got this Big Ten deal locked in, but there's going to be more college football competition with Warner Brothers. Now that they don't have the NBA, yeah, that's rumored to have. They might be in on the pack action. But yeah, that's another competition that just entered the market for them. It was really a scratching decision, and I don't get it at all. Now, Week 10, another impactful slate of games in the Southeastern Conference, as A&M beating LSU. To me, that's the two things. One, it put A&M in the driver's seat for the SEC title game, as their really only big game is Texas, as far as conference play and, of course, the regular season. And they're basically a shoe-in at this point for the playoff. And then with A&M beating LSU, LSU's now got 2 losses. That sets up an elimination game between them and Alabama for the postseason. So either one of those teams have their third loss, with LSU's loss to A&M and Southern Cal. Obviously, Alabama's losses to Tennessee and Vandy. 3-loss team, either of them is not getting in. Even an Alabama team who, in my opinion, has lost some luster without Nick Saban there. Are they good? Yeah, they're still good. But they don't have the best coach of all time on the sidelines anymore. That intimidation factor, I think, has gone a little bit. And I don't think the committee, when deciding to selecting teams, feels that as much of, we don't want to piss off Nick Saban, we got to pick Alabama. That intimidation factor is gone too. Now it's just Alabama. The aura around Alabama is not there. It's the coach that makes the aura in the school itself. I mean, we saw the struggles of Alabama from basically Don Shula. Gene Stallings to Nick Saban. There's a little bit of a gap where Alabama struggled. Dennis Franchione, Mike Price, Mike Shula. They're the 3 coaches in that span and struggled before Saban came in and rose Alabama from the ashes, right? It's the coach that makes the program. Alabama's not as scary as they once were, and they're good, no doubt about it. But Alabama beating Missouri obviously keeps them alive, and it keeps Missouri alive. Missouri's still in this playoff chase as well. Missouri's got 2 manageable. They got manageable games left for a 2-loss Missouri team. They got South Carolina, they got Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. So obviously right there in the conversation playoff. I think, their 2 biggest games left are Oklahoma and Arkansas. And Oklahoma is not good. They have not looked good at all. I think Arkansas is their biggest test. Alabama still got tough opponents. Obviously, like I mentioned, the LSU game, and you want to laugh, but they've got Auburn, Oklahoma. An Auburn game is not going to be easy. And I could see one or more losses to either LSU or Auburn. And there's been many years Auburn has not been good, and they've given Alabama fits or beaten Alabama or should have beaten Alabama. They either won national championship. Auburn wins. Alabama probably doesn't go. Was it 2 years ago? Auburn would have knocked Alabama out of the playoffs. Leading the entire game, they got a big fourth down conversion late in the ball game to win, to beat Auburn. So that's not going to be an easy game. And then to me, like this week, as far as national picture goes, I don't see a big daunting SEC matchup. You got Ole Miss versus Arkansas, a bigger one for Ole Miss based on the national conversation for Ole Miss and where they sit in the playoffs. And then you got Georgia, Florida in Jacksonville, and Georgia should roll. They're a way better team. Absolutely should roll over over Florida. And it hasn't really been close these last few years in the Georgia Florida game. They should roll. They should take care of business, and that's where they're at with that. So that's kind of, and then of course you got the big one in the Big Ten outside of the SEC. Penn State, Ohio State, obviously. Ohio State, one loss, undefeated. Penn State. Be very interesting if Ohio State loses. You've got a 2-loss Ohio State team. With those losses, though, they would still probably get into number 1 ranked Oregon, or what was Oregon? They were top 5 at the time. And then Penn State's what? 3, 4, 5, something like that. So yeah, that would be a loss on their end. And then if Penn State loses, that's okay. It makes it they're still in the conversation, still sitting in a pretty good spot for a playoff spot with 1 loss, depending. And then if they somehow stumble and have 2 losses to someone else on their schedule, that's another conversation of where do you see them, where do they fit, where do they go. But until then, obviously it's one of those wait and sees of what happens Saturday between Penn State and Ohio State at noon, a big noon Fox kickoff. So that's, to me, those are the bigger games and national impacts this week in college football coming up. And something that didn't really surprise me when it came to Monday Night Football ratings. Yes, ESPN Plus, I'm talking about, drew under $2 million for its Monday Night Football game. And it was a close game. It's a 17-15 win, Cardinals over the Chargers. I'm actually happy. Not about the score. I don't care about the score. That it drew under 2 million. Because I want these streaming services and games to stop these a la carte games of sorts, and it's bad for the consumers. I think a few reasons why it struggled. I mean, first off, the game did start at 9 p.m. For a regular season game, and then you had Monday Night Football starting at 8:20 on a channel easy accessible on basic cable or even over-the-air network television. So obviously easier to watch Monday Night Football, and it started at 8:20. So ESPN Plus has 25 million subscribers. Also, too, I think some of the subscribers might be, you know what, we just have it for UFC pay-per-views. Okay, yeah, sure. Football fans, yeah, probably some of them are. Not all of them. But then also, too, local hockey. So NHL started, obviously. And you want to watch your local hockey team, you want to watch the Panthers, Florida Panthers, or, the Blackhawks or whatever. You're watching them over the Monday Night Football game. To me, it's easy. If you're a hockey fan, you're watching your local hockey team over Chargers, Cardinals, Monday Night Football game. I think, too, this is going to be an uphill battle for ESPN Plus if they have these doubleheaders, if part of their doubleheader strategy on Monday nights. It's tough. I mean, not only 25 million, only 25 million have it. How many of that 25 million are football fans? B, I just watched the Monday night game. I got to go to bed. I got to get ready for work in the morning. I mean, if you work early, you're probably not even making it through the first, all the first Monday night game, much less the second game. So it's tough. And like I said, I'm happy with this because I think it's frustrating for consumers. If you want to watch football, to have all these additional streaming services, a la carte, et cetera, et cetera. It's getting out of control, and thankfully it did bad. Now, Alex Anthopoulos never wastes any time, and he's already done it. He's done it again. He's made a trade. He traded Jorge Soler to the Angels for Griffin Canning. And I think the big part of this deal is the Angels took all of Soler's $26 million for the next 2 seasons. The Braves didn't have to send a prospect. There was no money going with the deal for Soler, so they took it all, which is big. Canning is projected to get it around $5 million in arbitration if the Braves don't non-tender him. And if the Braves non-tender him, that costs nothing, obviously, because they don't offer him a contract. Canning, not good numbers. Career as a starter, 25-34 with a 4.78 ERA. This year went 6-13 with a 5.19 ERA and 32 starts in 172 2/3 innings. You like that part? The 32 starts, 172 2/3 innings. You like that? Everything else, not so well. His perennial numbers, if you want to go look at those as well, aren't very good. They weren't very good this year. Last year, interesting enough, so 2023, 7-8, okay, with a 4.32 ERA, 22 starts, 127 innings. You can live with that as a 5-starter. You take that, that's fine. 7-8, a 4.32, 22 starts, 127 innings. Yeah, you take that. He could be a valuable depth piece, 5th starter, swing guy, bullpen guy, long man, that kind of guy, that kind of pitcher for the Braves on this roster. Interesting enough that they've kind of got one of those guys in Grant Holmes already. I don't think this prevents Anthopoulos from doing anything. This just gives Anthopoulos an option to build his roster of, you know what, we can live with this guy. He doesn't have any minor league options, which isn't ideal. for the Braves and how like the function with their fifth starter they've seen the last basically 2 years, guys up and down, giving guys additional rest. Know what we're going to give Max Free, we're going to give Charlie Morton, we're going to give him a breather. So let's pull up a pitcher to make it a sixth day, you know. But it works. Those guys had options. Canning doesn't have options, so he'd have to obviously stick on the roster all year, or the Braves have to release him, let him go, DFA him during the season if he struggles. It's an option. I don't think it prevents the Braves from doing anything because they could just release and not tender him, and there you go. Obviously, the big piece of this is clearing Soler's money, who didn't really fit this roster because he's not an outfielder. And the Braves are always going to bring back Ozuna over Soler because there's only one DH spot, obviously. And Ozuna, the way he's produced the last 2 years and over his career, the last 2 years especially, of course the Braves are going to agree to his option and bring him back. So Soler's a DH playing the outfield, which if you watched any Braves games last year was a disaster. He'd always get pulled in the seventh inning because of defense. And obviously the outfield was a bit crowded with Michael Harris coming back. With Michael Harris back, with Ronald Acuna. Then that brings you to the other outfield options in left field with Ramon Laureano and Jared Kelenic. Obviously, Laureano was good for us, the Braves, last year after he got DFA'd. And Kelenic had a stretch of good, but he was very questionable. So let's just look at this. I know he didn't always play left field. He played some center last year, which is nice. Kelenic can play center. And I know Ramon Laureano played obviously a lot of right with Acuna out. But in this scenario, let's just say they're the left fielder with Acuna in right when he's back, Harris in center, obviously. This is what your left field position did last year. 26 homers, 78 RBIs, 245 average, with good defense from both those guys. Not world beaters, but not a complete dud. I mean, that's what Eddie Rosario gave you last year. I mean, in 2023, that's what basically the production Eddie Rosario gave you, which you could live with. But you get better defense from both Laureano and Kelenic. So that's an option. And could be a solution for clearing some of the Soler money. It gives you, like I said, clearing the money, it gives you an option to upgrade somewhere. Whether it's you make a run at shortstop, whether it's Willie Adames, whether it's Kim, shortstop, come back from shoulder surgery from played for the Padres the last 3 years. Maybe, fingers crossed, you go sign Max Fried. Doubtful, but fingers crossed, right? You go sign Max Fried. Or you know what? Let's just go get an outfielder. Let's go get a left fielder altogether. Maybe Anthony Santander. Big years with the O's the last few years. Juan Soto, I'm dreaming. Of course, he's not signed with Atlanta. I don't see that at all. One can dream. But that's obviously very far out there, not an option. But the money you're going to have from not paying Soler gives you options. And it's still very interesting what they do. I think it gives Ramon Laureano a better chance of coming back now that Soler's gone. Because it was basically Soler, Kelenic, Harris, Acuna. That's your four. With, say, Acuna doesn't come back till May, you got your three outfielders. 3 starting outfielders. But now he's gone. Interesting decision with Ramon Laureano. It gives Alex Anthopoulos options. And also, it should probably prevent the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos from going over to luxury tax and giving you more maneuverable money with the highest luxury tax. So that's a move that wasn't surprising based on Alex Anthopoulos, but you never know what he's going to do. And know what? Griffin could very well be part of a package for a trade later on this offseason, because you never know with Alex Anthopoulos what he's going to do, the moves he's going to make. It's so hard to keep track, which I like, not knowing until it actually happens. But it's you never know with Double-A. That's what's so great about being a Braves fan and following that organization, because you don't know it until it happens. The rumors, you don't even buy them, because they're usually, if the rumors are out there, they're usually way off on what Alex Anthopoulos is going to do. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You've been listening to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. Talk to you next week on E5280 Sports.